Morning to everyone. We just wait a little bit because we can start. Yeah. Okay. We were technical reasons. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you, the students. Thank you, professor, our guests. To everyone, this is our first stop outside Italy for the new established Southeast Europe Observatory, and also the second stage of the liberal dialogues. The first one was in Trieste, the city of borders and encounters. We choose the city, precisely this city, for the seat of our observatory, which was founded by La Fondazione Luigi Einaudi and the MIP Trieste School of Management. Our goal is to meet young people, universities, research and academic institutions, to build networks in order to exchange experience between those who are already members of the European Union and those who aspire to join it. I'm the coordinator of the scientific committee of the observatory and the responsible also for the observatory in Trieste. Unfortunately, Andrea Cangini, our director, cannot join us today because of family reasons. So I will be the one who will introduce our liberal dialogues and the observatory. Liberal dialogues is a transnational, educational, and civic initiative. The objective is to foster critical debate, regional cooperation, capacity building, and especially dialogue and reconciliation. And we count on you, students and young people, to do this very important task. The project is promoted by Southeast Europe Observatory. The main objective of the observatory is to analyze political, social, and economic trends and promote cross-border cooperation. Just a moment. And and to foster European integration. For this mission, we received the support of the Open Society Foundation, Western Balkans, as well as from the Generali. And the observatory benefits also from the support of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the European Commission. Before we start, we would like to thank you, professors, for the support and the collaboration, but also those who are hosting us today, the Europe House, which is the European Commission here in Ljubljana, and those also who are supporting us in our journey to Southeast Europe. We started in Trieste, then Ljubljana, and then we can go to Southeast Europe. So thank you for all. First, we would like to start with a video address of Jerneja Jug, head of the representation of the European Commission in Slovenia. She's not here. Where? Yes. Okay. We start with Ambassador. So Giuseppe Cavagna, here is. So thank you very much for supporting us. Yes, please take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all presents. It's really an honor for me to having been invited to this day and to be able also to say some words for opening it. The theme of today is, I think, of the utmost importance, and we are in the right place, and also the European flag, which is waving on my back, is also a very, very good signal for today. You will hear some professors, some experts dwelling and debating on liberalism, liberal ideas, and the situation of today. I think they are a theme of utmost importance, And it is nice to hear about them here in Ljubljana from people that and from a foundation that started off in Trieste. This because I think we cannot but underline the miracle that European Union is able to put in place when it works. And I'm referring to the deep changes that we experienced in the last 2-3 decades in the bilateral relations between Italy and Slovenia. You all have heard, I guess, about Go 2025, so Nova Gorica and Gorizia joint capital of culture last year. This is something unique, something unprecedented, and something that gives the flavor of what can be reached by joining, not only joining efforts, but by being a member of this incredible historical experiment, which is the European Union. I think that some reflection we will hear today will also dwell on this importance, and I'm really glad to be able to be here. A warm welcome to everybody, and again, thank very much to all the organizers for their efforts.
Thank you very much. So I would like also to thank Vesna Humar. She's the State Secretary for Relations between the Republic of Slovenia and the autochthon Slovene national communities outside Slovenia. So thank you for being here, for joining us. And I would like also to thank the MIP Trieste School of Management and Giuseppe Traconia for supporting this initiative. We are partners in this new adventure. So I would like to give you the floor because just give me 1 minute to remember that we are presenting also 3 or 4 scholarships, 3 scholarships of 1,000 euros for the most deserving students. We asked the participants to write a short report about how you see the Europe, your idea of Europe. You can present this report, and also with your CV, and a committee, a scientific committee, which choose the most deserved students. And these students will be invited then in Trieste on our annual report, annual forum, which will be held in Trieste in September, to present the idea to members of the European institutions, governments, ministers, experts, and so on. And then we have another very important scholarship, 28,000 euros, covering tuition for the MBA in International Business at MIP, Trieste School of Management. Andrea Traconia, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to have a chance to say a few words in front of such an amazing audience. We are academics, and so it's always so nice to have young people in front of us, and of course also professors. We are a business school, a school of management, actually. We are located in Trieste, and so it's just natural for us to be part of this Southeast Europe initiative. Trieste has always been a bridge between West and East, and we have always attracted so many talents from the countries nearby. And we are looking forward to have a chance to continue this recruitment and to work together with the young people. Also thanks to the support of the Fondazione Einaudi and the scholarship that was just mentioned. I only want also to say how much we are close to the idea of these liberal dialogues. We not only train people to learn managerial practices, but we are also training them on values and on principles which are part of the liberal thought. We think that free markets and democracy and freedom in general are absolutely needed ingredients for any management recipe for whatever organization, private, public, business-oriented or socially oriented. So again, we are so happy to be part of this initiative, and we are looking forward to continue participate and also to attract candidatures for the scholarship that was mentioned. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think we are ready to listen to Jerneja, the head of the representation of the European Commission in Slovenia, for her video address. Maybe.
Dear organizers, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of the European Union in Ljubljana for a discussion about young people as architects of Europe's future. I regret for not being able to be with you today, but I'm convinced that you're going to have a very fruitful discussion. A special warm welcome goes to all the young participants amongst you. Europe's future is not, and it should not be shaped only by the institutions, but a true dialogue with the young people should be a must. Looking at the three topics that you're going to discuss today, through the liberal dialogue in Ljubljana, I would like to briefly share my thoughts or reflections on all the three thematic blocks. Let me start with the EU and the liberal tradition. The European project is rooted in a long tradition of liberal political thought. At its core are key principles: individual freedom, the rule of law, an open society, and the market economy based on cooperation. Liberalism remains highly relevant today and offers a strong foundation for addressing today's challenges by promoting cooperation and a shared European future. According to the Eurobarometer from 2024, almost 9 in 10 Europeans say that it is important that all EU member states respect these core values. A key step in strengthening democracy is putting citizens at the center through the initiatives like, for example, European Citizens Panel. These panels bring citizens into policy making, allowing their recommendations to shape EU priorities. Just 2 weeks ago, a concrete European Citizens Panel took place on preparedness. Online contributions by everyone are still welcome until May 2026. Your engagement can make Europe a better place. And let me go to the second thematic block, which is women and the EU. Many great women have shaped European model and advanced the idea of a united Europe. For example, have you ever heard about Louise Weiss, a pioneer of European cooperation? Today, this legacy continues through women in leading roles across politics, science, and business. The EU is already one of the most gender-equal regions in the world. Recent progress includes stronger rules of pay transparency, improved work-life balance, and decisive action against violence against women. But we want more. Earlier this month, we adopted the Gender Equality Strategy 2026-2030 to integrate gender equality across all areas of life, from education and employment to leadership and the digital sphere. We need gender equality also in leadership positions, not because women are better, but just because we are different. And in order to see the world in a round way, we need men and women at all positions in society. Let me now go to the third thematic block, which is geopolitical challenges and the EU's value-based response. The world is marked by rising geopolitical tensions, growing nationalism, and increasing fragmentation. We are witnessing the return of barriers that deepen divisions and erode trust. In this context, protecting the core values of the EU becomes more important than ever. Democracy, the rule of law, and fundamental freedoms remain Europe's strongest response to global uncertainty. But democracies face mounting pressure from authoritarian actors seeking to undermine trust in institutions and free elections. In response, the European Commission introduced last year the European Democracy Shield to strengthen democratic resilience. This includes actions to safeguard the information space and ensure free and independent media and fair elections. Let me conclude. The European project is built on bridges, not walls, cooperation, not isolation, and dialogue, not division. Liberal values enable Europe to overcome divisions and shape a stable and secure future. At the heart of today's discussion lies a fundamental question. What kind of Europe do we want to build? We need to listen to young people, those who will shape Europe in the decades to come. So I wish you a productive dialogue, ensuring that young people truly become the architects of Europe's future. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Jerneja. So you have a big responsibility. So it's a great pleasure also to welcome our discussants. I will introduce Alessandro de Nicola, Professor of Comparative Business Law at Bocconi School of Management. He's also a lawyer and also president of the Adam Smith Society in Milan. Then we have with us Serena Sileoni, Associate Professor on Constitutional Law at the Orsola Benincasa University of Naples. And then maybe you will know also Oto Luthar. He's a historian. He's the director of the Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Science and Arts in Ljubljana. Najlepša hvala, da ste sprejeli in še sem skoraj pozabila na začetku en lep slovenski pozdrav tudi vsem vam. We will have with us also a little bit later also Matjaz Nemec, member of the European Parliament, who is joining us via Zoom, but a little bit later. And let's start with Alessandro de Nicola. He will addressing the topic of liberal economic schools from Adam Smith to von Hayek. Our first discussant in our first stage in Trieste, Mingardi. He said that there are plenty of misconceptions about what classical liberalism is. Many people think that the classical liberalism is gone. Do you agree? Just for a start.
Well, I don't think it's gone, but I also think that we must be very vigilant because of the principles we cherish and believe, that is, there is no end of history. There is no trajectory, a predetermined trajectory of history. This applies also to the trajectory of freedom. There is not a certain future for freedom. Everything can change. The experience of the 20th century has been tragic from this point of view. And therefore, while the philosophers of the Enlightenment were believers about the future of the humanity, a future of progress and freedom, I think that while the technological progress is difficult to unwind, not impossible, because during the high Middle Ages, people seemed to forget all the technological advances of the Romans. So technology, once you have accumulated knowledge, it is difficult to forget this accumulated knowledge, but it is not impossible. For sure, it is much easier to lose the freedoms or the societal advances that you have reached during the course of the years or the centuries. Therefore, my answer to you is that liberalism is not finished, and it would be a bit self-destructive from my point of view to say that it is finished. But I think that it is an era where we must be particularly vigilant about the survival and development of liberalism.
Thank you for the answer.
Well, let's start. Okay. I think that it is better for me to stay there just because so I can see what I am. So, thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to continue our long-standing cooperation with Fondazione Einaudi and with MIB. I myself taught some classes several years ago at MIB. And what we discussed today in a nutshell, don't worry for the students, in really a nutshell, the history of liberal economic thought. What I really hope to reach here is a summary that makes clear how some principles are shared by all the liberal thinkers, how their thought, even when it is something which comes from political philosophers more than economists, have influenced also the economic thought, and how and why they are relevant today and why they are relevant for you, why they are relevant for young people. Because one of the troubles that we always have is to make evident how these principles, these declamations and so on are relevant for everyday life, and why they are relevant for young people, and why young people are the better witnesses about the importance of freedom. There is no one more than young people that cherish freedom, that strive for freedom, that experience their taste of freedom, and typically they enjoy it. So let's start with just a brief summary. The evolution of economic thought. Then we have a sort of story of apostles of the liberal thought, and then we have also a St. Paul, and St. Paul is Friedrich von Hayek, because probably in the 20th century he has been the the thinker that has more joined together economic principles, sociology, law. He has been really someone different from all the others. So the first two, John Locke on your right and David Hume on your left. You can see from the aspect of David Hume that he was a guy who enjoyed life. Really was a good-humored person. His pleasure was to share time with friends, good wine. While in Scotland it was even more precious, good wine. When he stayed in Paris for some years, everyone knew him as Le Bon David, because he was always someone. Okay, John Locke. John Locke, you have heard of him. He is an English philosopher, and he lived in the 17th century. He died in 1704. So just at the beginning of the 18th century. He has been also instrumental for the political thought and what was known as the Glorious Revolution in England. The Glorious Revolution in England is when the king lost definitely his absolute power, and a new king from the Netherlands. And so the influence of the Netherlands on the development of a liberal thought is underestimated, but it is incredibly important. So William of Orange was established as a constitutional king. So what is the first intuition of John Locke? That the source of ownership, why do we own things? Why do we own money? Why do we own land? Why? So in the past, it was quite easy because, for instance, kings were chosen by God. And so even now in England, property, real estate is formally the ownership of a king. So it was a legitimate divine entitlement, or because they were inherited by noblemen who conquered their right of property because of their ancestry. But it was not very clear why people had this right of ownership when they were not God-blessed. Well, because of labor. With labor, you transform property and you acquire the legitimacy to own it. So it is thanks to labor, it is thanks to the fact that you develop, as today, goods for your customers. It is because you are a professional and you are either a good doctor or a good lawyer or a good engineer, and with your labor you improve the life of others, that you are entitled to ownership. Then, of course, the economic thought has evolved even from that, but this was essential. The legitimacy doesn't come from God, doesn't come from your blood, doesn't come from your ancestors. It comes because you benefit the rest of the society, because with your labor, you benefit the rest of the society. This was really important. Second, John Locke was famous because he said that the task of the government is to protect life, liberty, and property of people, of individuals. And it is important to have property rights to have a sounding economy, a sound economy. Why? Because if you don't have property rights, if you don't know whether this microphone is Serena microphones, or is my friend Andrea's microphone, then it is difficult to sell it. It is difficult to make improvements. Who is taking care of this microphone if nobody knows who is the owner of a microphone? Who is selling it? Who is trying to improve it, to polish it, and so on? Property rights are essential. In England, there is something which is called the tragedy of the commons. What are the commons? The commons were the common land owned by communities. And the tragedy was that at the end of the day, as it was common land, it was nobody land. And nobody took care of the common land, while the private farms were flourishing. And Locke understood that. So property rights, knowing who owns what and why he owns something, they are both principles essential for the development of a sound economy. David Hume. David Hume was incredibly important. They are both political philosophers. They are not economists. Adam Smith is an economist. But they are both political philosophers that contributed a lot to economic thought. And David Hume also wrote extensively on economics. First, David Hume understood that there is a spontaneous order. How a society is born. What happens? People living in caves at a certain point meet and stipulate a contract altogether? Very improbable. This is what Locke thought. I mean, not in the real sense. He didn't think that there were 1,000 people from the caves meeting and stipulating a contract. But he worked on the assumption that there was a social contract among people, and this social contract was the Constitution, which was already a great improvement from the past. And still there are many contractarians in political thought. David Hume says no. Even as a theory, it is not a real historical fact, it is implausible, because what it really happens is evolution. So people understand that it might be better that if someone is a better farmer and another one is a better hunter, well, they agree among themselves, okay, we'll go out hunting and you'll stay here farming. And this comes out from observation, from empirical experience, and not from a contract. So the best institutions, those that really serve the purposes of people, come out from agreements, a spontaneous order coming out from the cooperation of individuals. If you think to yourself, when you want to organize something with your classmates and so on, I mean, it is difficult that you sit around a table and then you have someone saying, okay, let's stipulate a contract for deciding what to do tonight. Usually it comes out that someone says, I know that there is a movie tonight at the cinema, which is fantastic. No, I think there is a football match, which is even better. Well, okay, why don't we go out to have a beer? And then from the interaction comes out this spontaneous order that make you decide how to spend the night. This is what it happens. There is a spontaneous order, an interaction, a cooperation among individuals. And then he also elaborated some economic principle. This one, which is, esoteric. What the damn is the price species flow? Yes, it is esoteric, but it is very easy. The price species law says that if you export a lot, well, in the past there was this idea that it was better to export as much as you can and to import as less as you can, because exporting meant that you received gold. So what better than gold? No, says David Hume. What do you do with gold? If you export a lot, because you are better at producing wine, for instance, you will receive gold, but then the more gold you receive, the more prices go up. And when prices go up, producing wine is not anymore as convenient as it used to be. So you will start to pay with your gold the wine produced somewhere else. And at the end of the day, the natural flow of trade, goods and money, reaches a sort of equilibrium. Because it is not a precondition of wealth to be exporters and to prevent imports, because commerce benefits all. Commerce benefits all. commerce is not a zero-sum exercise. You buy what other people are better at doing, and you sell what you are better doing, and everyone is more happy. Everyone is more happy. This is how commerce works, and you have an example of how it shouldn't work with what the United States are doing with tariffs. Now everyone seems to realize that tariffs are bad. That tariffs are something which, well, usually people realize that tariffs are bad when they are the other ones imposing tariffs, but they are bad even when you impose tariffs, because you are obliged to buy your local products that are inferior and are even more expensive. And Hume understood everything in the 18th century. Then the great friend of David, we don't have an, sorry. Okay. And then the great friend of David Hume, Adam Smith. Adam Smith was completely different from David Hume. He was an introvert. He was quite distract. They say that a day he woke up and he started to think aloud, and then he started to walk outside his house, still in his pajama, and he was reflecting, and after 10 kilometers, he realized that he was out with his pajama and didn't realize what. So he was a person completely different, an intellectual. He liked books more than wine, but he was a great friend of David Hume. So first of all, Adam Smith, this is one of the examples that probably Alberto Mingardi had in mind. There are misconceptions. Adam Smith is thought to be the champion of egoism, of laissez-faire, and so on. This is a sort of misrepresentation of Adam Smith. First of all, Adam Smith was a moral philosopher. He invented the concept that for us now is, even too much utilized, empathy. He called it sympathy, but it was the equivalent of what it is empathy. Now, today, everyone must be empathic. You have instructions on how to behave at work or at school. You must be empathic. Adam Smith just understood that people are moved by empathy. They have a natural empathy towards other people in their circle. So he asked himself, why we are more concerned about someone who hurts his fingers and is your friend, and you are not so much concerned about 50 people losing their life because a vessel sinks 5,000 miles away? Because of empathy, because we have a natural tendency to be empathic, to have sympathy for others around. So this means that you feel a sort of duty to, for instance, take care of your family, take care of your community, take care of your friends, and so on, which is already a lot. It is not the atomistic individual. Then you have a market. First of all, division of labor. Now, for us, it is obvious, division of labor. If you are an engineer, you are not going to write a defense for a lawsuit. And if you are a lawyer, you are not curing someone for his cancer. It is obvious. Division of labor. Division of labor is what make the economy work. There is a very famous example of Adam Smith, the pin factory, you know, a pin, needle. So the pin factory, if a single worker does everything from molding the iron, then hammering the iron, so he can produce 1 pin a day, maybe 10. If 48, he took a real example, if 48 workers have all their specialized tasks, they can produce 100,000 pins, which is true. Then, of course, you have the problem of alienation, because probably you haven't seen this movie, Modern Times of Charlie Chaplin. There is a representation of a modern worker that does only one thing, and then he becomes crazy. And Adam Smith realized that, and he thought that education was the better antidote to alienation. So, specialization of labor. The invisible hand metaphor. You possibly have heard about the invisible hand. The economy seems moved by an invisible hand that at the end of the day places the right things at the right place. Meaning that with the spontaneous cooperation of the individuals producing, exchanging, trading, paying, and so on, this produces much better results than something that it is thought in advance by a ministry. I mean, you possibly have read Harry Potter, right? Who read Harry Potter? Harry Potter here. Hands raised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Okay, 10. Well, what is the most stupid human agglomerate of Harry Potter? The Ministry of Magic. Okay? They try to decide what can be done by the wizard, what cannot be done, the regulations. There is nothing more stupid than the ministry. Okay? Voldemort is much better organized. At least he gives orders. Okay? And this is the same. This is something that Adam Smith... Read Harry Potter. Harry Potter is really a tale that tells you a lot about individual initiative. It is Harry Potter cooperating with Hermione and all the friends that at the end of the day defeats the authoritarian Voldemort, right? It's a very good parable. And this is what Adam Smith understood. Finally, he understood that competition makes things better. Because when you compete with others, and this is a lesson that Hayek elaborated, and 3 minutes I've finished because 5 minutes and I've finished. Competition, it's that you often hear this phrase. Competition is bad. Competition is bad. It is something which is wild competition. You often listen to people say wild competition. Competition is very good. Very good. First of all, because before competing, you have to cooperate. If you don't cooperate, you are not able to compete. If you don't cooperate with someone that, let's assume that you are an automaker, okay? If you don't cooperate with someone who provides you with the iron, with the technology, with the workforce, with the financing, and so on and so forth. If you don't cooperate, you don't compete. So in order to compete, you must be someone who knows how to cooperate with others. Second, competition is a process of discovery of knowledge. Look at the Chinese. Okay, they have been subsidized by the government, whatever you want. But now, after having discovered how the others make cars, they have learned how to make cars, and sometimes their cars are, if not better, a good buy. I mean, the quality of some of the Chinese cars for sale, I mean, it's a good buy for the price they have, because competition develops knowledge. You imitate what the others are doing better than you, and you add new ideas. And you know that if you don't add new ideas, someone else will do it, and you will go bust. Without competition, there is no life, there is no improvement. Competition is good. Competition is good. Nothing of what you have here would have been realized without competition. Then you have the rules of competition. Competition doesn't mean killing your competitor, of course. But government must protect liberty, life, and property. Competition doesn't mean fraud, of course. But these are the principles that you find in Roman law, or even in Greek law. So, the last one, in reality, we have 10 apostles, but the last one I want to... Not 12. The last one I want to talk to speak about is Alexis de Tocqueville, and you can tell that he was an aristocrat. I mean, really. Alexis de Tocqueville, and here I tell you something which really affects your daily life, because you are on TikTok, you are on Instagram, you are too young to be on Twitter now. No one older than 18 goes, no, younger than 18 goes on Twitter. Facebook, maybe someone just to find good old friends, and so on and so forth. So you are socializing on social. And when you grow up, then you will be subject to the tyranny of LinkedIn. And it is not still the case, but sooner or later you will be subject to the tyranny of LinkedIn. So, Alexis de Tocqueville was a liberal French aristocrat, but at a certain point decided to go to America. Okay? And he wrote a fantastic book, Democracy in America. And he really discovered a new world. Why in America, why they are thriving so much? Why this dynamic society is doing better than old Europe? Well, first of all, he found that equality meaning that no one was judged because of his blood or his ancestry or his social position, but everyone was judged for what he was or she was able to do. Everyone was judged according to his capacity, his contribution to the society and the community, but helped a lot. So, equality. Let's consider other people not according to our prejudice, but according to what we are able to do. This is the first lesson of life. The second one is the tyranny of majority. We are all believers in democracy, right? Everyone, even the wildest populists that you find even in European politics, they believe in democracy. Democracy is not all in life if individuals are not protected. The smallest minority of a society is the individual. And democracy is nothing without liberalism. Why? Because you can have the despotism of majorities. What does it happen if a majority thinks that from a certain point on, tattoos are forbidden? I don't particularly like tattoos, but I would be very much opposed to a law that forbids tattoos, even if it is taken by a majority of 51%, 61%, 71%. It would be wrong. And Alexis de Tocqueville understood that there is a risk of a despotism of majority. And in democratic societies, he realized that there is a further danger, soft despotism and dependence, when everyone thinks the same. And there is no space for creativity. When, you don't receive enough likes on Instagram or TikTok because you post something which is not something which is of the same taste of your friends or of your followers. And then you interrupt, even if you think that it was good to show that you were here today. You post on Instagram and all your friends say, the usual boring Laszlo or Ivan or whatever. What does he do? Instead of playing football, he goes to a conference on liberal values. It must be crazy. This is the soft despotism, the opinion which suffocates the creativity, new ideas, debate, and so on. And democracies are particularly keen to develop this kind of suffocation. So Tocqueville is so important, and important also for economic thought, because obviously if you have liberty to derogate from what is the common understanding in production or whatever, then you have a possibility to innovate. But Tocqueville is so important for our everyday life. Think always to him. Think always about the group mentality. Try always to be your own person. There is one fundamental property in human life, and it is the property of yourself. You are your owner. You are your owner. And the danger is the danger of prejudice, of suffocation of creative think, and of group mentality that takes away some of the humanity every one of us must strive for. For the rest of the economists, you have the slides, but I don't want to take too much time to my colleagues. Sì, faccio vedere. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's... John Stuart Mill is very important. Even his wife is very important, but Serena will speak about his wife. because Mill's harm principle is fundamental. What is the harm principle? You can do whatever you want, provided you don't harm other people. It's the principle of liberty, of freedom. So the governments that impose restrictions on behaviors that do not harm other people are illiberal governments. And another important thing was the emergence of the Austrian School of Economics. Forget the Austrian School of Economics, but they understood how do we value goods. Okay? Adam Smith, for instance, made a mistake because he thought that the value of the goods was determined by the quantity of labor. Obviously, labor of a carpenter was not the same of the labor of a surgeon. And then there was the value of labor and the value of the raw material. So it was sophisticated. But at the end of the day, the value of things is not determined by the value of labor, because you have some goods that require a lot of labor, a lot of effort, and whose value is much less than a Cartier watch that probably the craftsman of Cartier took 5, 6, 12 hours, 24, 2 days, but it sells for 50,000 euros. So why? Why? Because what it is important, and again, it's a cry of freedom, it's your individual preference. It is what consumers value most. And if consumers think that maybe they are stupid, it might well be. Maybe they are not. If the consumers think that the value of the pleasure of having a Cartier watch is 50,000, this is the reason why the price is 50,000. Individual preference. And marginal utility. What is marginal utility? Very easy. Are you happy with a chocolate ice cream? Yes or no? Yes. What about the second chocolate ice cream? Yes. What about the third? Yeah, yes, okay. What about the fourth? Maybe. What about the fifth? No. Okay, you have chocolate coming out from your ears. This is marginal utility. The value of a good diminishes piecemeal once the quantity increases. So the first time you go to the cinema to watch a movie you like, okay. Second time, third time. So marginal utility and individual preferences are the two determinants of the value of goods. Always think to it. When you think this is too expensive or this is a good bargain, think always to these two determinants. Okay.
Let's go just through the authors.
Okay, the authors. Okay, yes, the authors. Okay, so this one is very important. Karl Popper.
Maybe they can read.
Karl Popper, yes. Karl Popper is a political philosopher incredibly important. He said that there are no predetermined laws of history. He said that for a theory to be sound, it must be falsifiable, so it must not be metaphysics and so on. So Karl Popper, very important. These are two. One is von Mises, an economist, And von Mises discovered that prices are information. Prices give information to entrepreneurs on where and how to invest. And socialism, where prices are determined by the government, cannot work because socialism cannot give the value of goods without the intervention of a central authority that obviously does not have all the information, and it is influenced by many factors that is not the value, marginal utility, and individual preference that you really have. Nozick, Locke style, people have rights. Buchanan, you don't like, the behavior of many politicians. You maybe like some politicians, but you don't like the behavior of many of them. But there is nothing wrong with politicians. They are not worse people than we are. Usually, people tend to think that politicians are worse than we are. It is not the case. Buchanan says, no, they live in a market. They are not angels. We do not expect politicians to be angels. They live in a market. So what is their reward? To be re-elected. So what do? They do what they can to be re-elected. So there is not a question of good or bad. Yes, some of them, but most of them, first of all, even if they want to do some good to the society, they must be re-elected. Bureaucrats, what is their task? Their task is to remain relevant, because if they are not relevant anymore, if the government agency is closed, they are not relevant anymore. So this is something which illuminated economic theory. Government is not a benign distributor of wealth and so on. No, because there are real people behind governments. And real people act like in a market, political market or administrative market. Ronald Coase, another genius, because he understood that if property rights are secure and if there are not too high costs of negotiations, then people tend to find a solution among themselves because, again, they cooperate, they negotiate. So if there is not an enormous cost to negotiate an agreement, and if property rights are secure, better to have a negotiation. Milton Friedman, who, as you can notice, has my same necktie. Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize. First, monetarist theory, meaning that inflation is caused by the influx of money. If the central bank print too much money, at the end of the day, you have inflation, period. Second, critique of government interventions. Many government interventions have exactly the opposite outcome than they were fought for. And there is no law that says that even when there is a government intervention, for instance, education, okay, we all think that education must be granted to everyone, okay, but there is no need that there is a monopoly of the government. The government must support children to be educated, but education can be provided in competition also by private actors or NGOs or foundations and so on. And this competition, even healthcare, will improve the final outcome. And Friedrich von Hayek, we have already more or less said what he did. He understood the risks of central planning, and he understood how there is not such a thing as a pure economist. An economist must understand society, psychology, law, because these are social sciences. So if some of you at the university becomes an economist, remember that you are precluded to have better insights about the economy if you are not also a quote-unquote social scientist, someone who understands society at large. Sorry for the time I took. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you. Yeah, we left a little bit more time for you. But let's talk now about women, women's freedom and the legal foundation of liberal order with Serena Sileoni, Associate Professor of Constitutional Law at the Orsola Benincasa University of Naples. I would also inform you that we have other 25, maybe 25 people and students following us on online in streaming. Yes, we are a lot. And let me also inform you, but the Slovenian students, they know, but you are also aware that here in Slovenia there is a very, very big women movement for the women's right called My Voice, My Choice, which they called the European Commission to put forward a proposal for financial support to member states for ensure the safe and legal abortion in all countries of European Union. They are all young women, and they are promoting this campaign on European stage. So you are here in Slovenia, and I would like that you know this.
Thank you for this.
And also maybe people who are following us from
Yes.
from Israel.
And they can find, I think, their claim on change.org, I guess.
They can. You can find all the information also on online, and we have a lot of informations about.
Okay.
They are very good in informing and in their campaign.
Thank you. And thank you from my heart for this invitation. I'm very happy, not only for the invitation by the Luigi Einaudi Foundation, but also to speak to such a youth audience. I guess you're coming from social science faculties, aren't you? Okay. So after these pictures on the fathers of the liberal order, without forgetting Einaudi and Bruno Leoni, because of our foundations are dedicated to, what we want to leave to you is some impression, a focus on a more straight argument, that is how much the feminism and the women's freedom originates from the liberal order. Very much more than you can think. David Bose is a libertarian scholar, an American libertarian scholar, one of the most prominent libertarian scholars in the US. And I quoted this statement. You can find the entire article online in the Huffington Post .is. He said a libertarian or an authentic liberal scholar, that's the same more or less, must necessarily be a feminist, in the sense of being an advocate of equality under the law for all men and women. Look inside to this assumption. Doesn't work. I want to go. It worked? Okay. Feminism at its origin was a liberal movement from an historical point of view, because it was a part of the individualist tradition. centered on the idea of equality as human being and of property of his or her own. The Nicola already said how much important is the concept of ownership for the liberal order. You are own of yourself. You are a man or you are a woman, doesn't matter. You are own of your liberties and your freedom. It did not propose the first feminism. It did not propose state-based solutions, which should be followed the emancipation movement in 70s. So very much later. Many people assumed that the early feminist activists and supporters were socialist and interventionist and came from the leftist side, okay? But the reality is truly opposed. First, women movements did not ask for protection under the law. They asked for equal treatment before the law. That is very different. Because they weren't equal before the law to the man. They asked for a legal ability, for example, to sign a contract or an equal treatment and equality inside the family, their family, in front of their husband. They asked the right to vote. They didn't ask an intervention to compensate inequalities. They asked intervention to eliminate inequalities. The first in the mid were the first women's claims go back to the Enlightenment, even before the feminist movement. It was a natural corollary of Enlightenment to claim for equality also for women. The first claims go back to the work by Marinelli. She's Marinelli in a work that dates back in 1601, the nobility and excellence of women. Then there were other works such as the equality of men and women by de Gournay. They argued for fundamental equality between sexes, and they asserted a very simple for us principle that biological differences were not biological, but they were the result of disparate education. For us is something taken for granted, but it's not so. During the French Revolution, women start to participate to political discussion. There were some excellent from aristocracy, some excellent women that host in their flats political debates during the French Revolution. But it has been only in the 18th century that feminist claims became something. Became a manifesto. The first manifesto was written by Mary Wollstonecraft from United States, and then from Judith Sargent Murray, also from the United States. Mary Wollstonecraft, that was the wife of William Godwin and the mother of, I guess you know her daughter. She was the mother of Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. Well, she wrote the Vindication of the Rights of Women, the first manifesto for women's rights, saying that women were treated until then as a kind of subordinate being and not as part of the human species. She asked to be treated as human being, not as a thing. A thing which probably was in the hand of the father and then the husband. In that text, Wollstonecraft demanded the women to be educated rather than remain mere objects for the amusement of men. From the United States through England, the feminist political movement went to Europe, and women start to fight for equal education, for the right to vote, and were also abolitionists, for example, because of their indication was for equality treatment, nevertheless, if for gender reason or for the color of the face. In the second half of the 19th century, feminism developed as an emancipation movement. At the 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention in New York proposed abolitionism besides women's liberties. Already Alessandro quoted John Stuart Mill. The John Stuart Mill's wife was even most important than John Stuart Mill. Her name is Harriet Taylor Mill. She was one of the foremost feminists during the liberal period, and she truly inspired the work of his husband. In reality, one of the main known essay of John Stuart Mill, The Enfranchisement of Women, it has been seen by him, but in reality, it has been written by her. So she worked for his husband. She very influenced his husband, and they are the most important couple for the feminist movement still today. What she teaches still to us. She teaches, for one thing for me very important still today, that the natality problem, that is our main problem in the old Europe, the natality problem is a consequence of the women emancipation. It's not a judgment, it's a fact. She fought for women's freedom, she fought for women's emancipation, but she foresaw that such an emancipation should have consequences on our demography, because we can choose.
Serena,
Okay.
Because otherwise we don't have time.
Okay. So what happened in why we think that some events then activated the recognition of women's role and women's freedom. War and capitalism. War and capitalism, because society during the First and Second World War and with the way of work due by capitalism became labor force and were able to demonstrate that they have a social and economic dignity. But why we, just to go on to the final statement, why we are convinced, why we think now that feminism has nothing to do with liberal order and much to do with progressive and leftist movement, because of the fight, because of the movement in 70s, where equality before the law for the women's fight became equality through the law. And capitalism, which has been very important for women's emancipation, became an enemy for the feminist movement in 70s, because capitalism produced this kind of picture, because women are slaves of the capitalism and of a patriarchal society, and need to have helped by statal public intervention, not to be equal before the law, but to be equal through the law. For example, through gender quotas in companies. So just to go to the end, there are two different approaches, one before the law and the other one through the law. I take one example from Italy, my country, very recent examples. The example of claims of women's right before the law is that on the left. In 2022, the Italian Constitutional Court recognized for the first time that women have the right to give her name to their children. And it's not automatic that children have the name of their father. It's a choice, it's a matter of choice of the couple. So 2022, yesterday. And this is equality before the law. The other one is equality through the law. In the same, maybe earlier, in 2016, maybe, Italian Parliament passed the law, initially for a certain period, and then it has been stabilized, that demands for gender quotas in companies, in the board of companies. So in the balance between economic freedoms and women's participation, legislator gave priority to women's participation. This is equality through the law.
Thank you, Serena. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Maybe you have a lot of other interesting things to tell us. But before inviting the Professor Oto Luthar to talk about the evolution of liberal thought and ideas in countries of former Yugoslavia, let's give the floor to Matjaz Nemec. He's joining us via Zoom. He's a member of the European Parliament. So thank you for being here with us. And I would like just to start with a question. Do you think that a strong welfare state can coexist with liberal civil society positions?
First of all, a warm greet from the capital of Europe, from Brussels. Esteemed creators and supporters of the Liberal Dialogue Project, and all distinguished speakers, I would like to express my sincere support for the idea being realized today through the Liberal Dialogue Project. So I'm bringing young people together and supporting their education and potential is and should be one of the greatest, greatest responsibilities of our community, the European one. For such progress to happen, critical thinking is essential, especially during this geopolitical period and tensions. We all share the responsibility to guide this thinking towards responsible decision making. And we are, as let's say, member of the European Parliament, one of those who are also making and adopting some decisions. But nevertheless, what the story of the European Union teaches us is it began as an idea shaped by what the nations of Europe no longer wanted after the devastation of the Second World War and many earlier conflicts, and some of them we are also facing them now. But the founding fathers and mothers of this idea of the European Union understood from the very beginning that the integration could not rely on only on the economics, politics, or ideology, but must be built on values. And especially the European Parliament nowadays is calling on them daily as the core. These values address basic human needs, of course, peace, freedom, and mutual respect. So dialogue, which brings us together today, and it's so needed, especially today, is the force that allows these values to live side by side. So dialogue, not weapons. And different ideas and beliefs also coexist, but through dialogue we must remain capable to and responsible enough to reaffirm again and again our commitment to these fundamental values. This is the legacy of the European Union and must be boosted, and the legacy which has endured despite decades of progress, as well as setbacks, crisis, and uncertainty. We have overcome these challenges because we understood from the very beginning, so from the end of the Second World War, together united under the flag of European Union, we can achieve more than we ever could alone. And this is the main message also during these specific days, that united we can achieve much more. I often emphasize that the European idea is never finished, especially when we are complaining about Brussels and the European Union. And it is a dynamic process that constantly challenges us to grow and to reflect on where we may have gone, of course. Only through, let's say, honest self-reflection can we choose better paths forward. When speaking to young people, as you, I always encourage you not to be afraid to make a more active role in social, let's say, political, and also in economic life. You should explore, for example, or learn and share ideas, and above all, rely on your determination and courage, because it's a need to preserve and to demand better decision and greater accountability from leaders. I truly believe that without you, young people, and your engagement, no society can achieve lasting progress. Young people are most honest mirror, one that politics still too looks into today. This is why I'm especially pleased that this platform focuses on young people, because I'm convinced that encouraging their participation, cooperation, and connection across the region is an important step toward, because it's a need to strengthen peace and collaboration, especially in the region. Experience shows that European integration has always started with the people, including in my own country and in my own region. I'm coming from the western side of Slovenia. Historically disputed by many, but nowadays living a European reality. So this progress is not primarily about politics, but it's about people, their needs, experiences, of course, inspiration to live a European future in the capital of culture, Gorica and Nova Gorica. It's a good project and an example how we achieved an amazing process during this, let's say, 80 years since the end of the Second World War. But this path is never simple because every region, especially every member state, has faced challenges and obstacles in the process of integration. So it's not easy, especially in the region. And what unites us, and of course it has to unite them, is the determination to be able to overcome these difficulties and let's say and the desire to grow in a progress. Our own Slovenian experience confirms this, and we could be also an example, and also using my region and my country as an example for the Western Balkan, for the southeastern region. Therefore, so dear young people, I encourage you to remain active, engaged, and curious, to create opportunities to connect with one another, and to not be afraid to ask questions to your leaders, to your stakeholders, to think critically, and to demand answers from the leaders, from the decision makers, for yourself and for future generation. And that's on the issue, the matter to you. So overall, the liberal idea has held free, let's say, both society and individuals from the idea of absolute authority, a power that would govern people according to its own rules, and in this case, the Europeans one. So freedoms, human rights, and the rule of law are values that come from liberal thoughts and from the foundation of modern European societies. And now all those values are challenged. So it is, and now we're finding, it seems that our generation is, let's say, fighting this important fight for our common future. Allow me to conclude with a few sentences about, let's say, the liberalism. However, I like any idea of or ideology, but the liberalism also has its risk. There is always a danger that it can drift into its own opposite. In this context, I'm referring to neoliberalism as an economic approach. Experience has shown us that the free market has its limits, and that economic individualism also has its limits. Now we are living this reality. Our generation is living this reality. So we need a strong sense of community. We need a rule for the state. If everything is left solely for market forces, the most vulnerable are left behind. So there are a need to regulate some issues. Without state intervention in certain areas, we would be facing even deeper crisis today. One of those sectors, of course, is the internet, artificial intelligence, for example. With that, I now give the floor to you if there's any question. If not, for me, it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much. But nevertheless, be free to ask anything you would like to say, or to let's say, to inform me. It's been a pleasure. I wish you a good staying in Ljubljana, and I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best to all of us. It's been a pleasure for me.
Thank you, Matjaz Nemec from Brussels. So we'll leave the questions for the end because we are a little bit late. We leave now let's say the conclusions to Oto Luthar. He's a historian, the director of the research center of the Slovenian Academy of Science and Arts in Ljubljana. His lecture will be about he maybe will start about from the expectations of about liberal democracy after Slovenia gained independence, and where has the evolution of liberal thought led so far. And you will talk also about a very interesting project and campaign you did 25 years ago. It's a symposium about liberal democracy. It is very interesting. If you can share with us.
Okay, thank you. Dober dan, živijo. Samo še 15 minut držite, pa smo tam. Torej, vi, kolegica, tukaj v prvi vrsti, kako se pišete? Do you speak Slovenian? No, the colleague behind you. Yeah. Pistavec, ja. Vi pogledajte na uro, pa ko bo 14 minut minilo, dvignite roko in to bo znak, da končam. Še nekaj stavkov v slovenščini, dovolite. No, I'm going to translate myself. Thank you. Just to fix this on. Okay. So, no, it's fine. Torej, jaz sem bil naprošen, da na kratko predstavim, kako je liberalna ideja ali je ideja o liberalnem vstopila ta prostor, in ko govorimo o tem prostoru, ne mislim samo prostor bivših slovenskih dežel in to, kar danes predstavlja Slovenija, ampak tudi jugovzhodna Evropa. Ne nazadnje, ta projekt je tesno povezan s to regijo. Well, thank you for inviting me. First Eva Čuk and then other members of Einaudi and the faculty in Trieste. It's my pleasure to be part of it. Well, I'm glad that Secretary Vesna Humar joined us. It is always a pleasure, and the same goes for the Excellency, the Italian Ambassador, Mr. Cavani. I just explained to the student that I will be finished in 14 minutes, and then they should stop me. And then I'm going to say something about how the idea of the liberal or liberalism was introduced in this region. Well, I have to use my PowerPoint as well. So going to my questions, I decided to frame this talk into answering to these questions. And I will skip some in the middle to save some time, but I have to mention Maria Todorova, whom you may saw months ago while she was having a talk in Faculty of Social Sciences in Ljubljana. Did anyone participate in the talk? It was organized by the Department of Cultural Studies. No? Okay, even better. So I'm going to tell you why I think she is important. Because she's the one who can help us answering the question, what are we talking about when we talk about Southeastern Europe? And when we talk about Southeastern Europe, we also talk about Slovenia. Slovenia, being a part of Central Europe, is as well part of this wider space called Southeastern Europe. So when I discuss this matter, I usually use the works of Bulgarian-American historian Maria Todorova, especially I used her book on Balkanism. You might, well, if you don't, have anyone heard about Maria Todorova? Okay. So you who know her knows that her writings on Balkanism using Edward Said's The Construction of Orientalism are the best entry point for understanding of the Southeastern Europe or the Balkan, if you wish. Not to repeat her words, I've chosen a fragment of an introduction to her work. So while I'm going on, you can read about how he approached this topic. Beside this referential book that was also translated in many languages, also in Slovenian, I would recommend her latest work with the title Balkan Mission Possible. First published in German and then in English, and I believe it will be published in Slovenian as well shortly. I would recommend you to read this at least of two reasons. First, while alluding to Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible film series and Hans-Georg Gadamer defense of humanity is based on his thought on tradition, prejudice, experience, dialogue, negotiations, reciprocity, etc. She also takes stock on her own shifting horizons, as she has both. Being a Bulgarian, she experienced the life in this area, and she contemplates on this, what does it mean being part of this space? And second, because of the last chapter of the book, where she offers an inside view into Balkan intellectual history. While describing the importance of local bookstores, she's interested in showing how ideas spread beyond the core of Europe. In describing the life of a local teacher, her name was Angela Boneva, from a small town north of Sofia. She makes it clear that ideas somehow found their way to the most remote backwaters of the Southeastern Europe, while the idea that this was possible took much longer to prevail. So you have this story about this simple teacher who was educated in Bulgaria. She never attended university, as the usual intellectuals at that period would, I mean Vienna, Prague, Berlin, and so forth. So she were in a way self-taught, but with the help of this distribution of ideas also about liberalism, she came in touch with the works she was interested while she was browsing through the bookstore in this small town in North Bulgaria. And this, I decided to show this to explain how ideas could enter a different space, not necessarily, as I said, through the people who get their education in the core, in that sense, in the core of Central Europe, mostly. And the similar cases as this one are to be found throughout of the whole region. And it would be really interesting to study them and to see how the ideas were introduced beyond the common practice that I already mentioned. In the Slovenian part of the dual monarchy, the transfer of ideas was somehow easier. As a part of German-speaking Cisleithania, those interested in liberal ideas could rely on the networks created by their peers in the capitals and other regional centers, meaning Graz or even Vienna. And one of the first triggers when we speak about the liberal ideas, that the discussion about equality, the right to vote, was introduced after the Paris Commune in 1871, because after returning from France, some Slovenian craftsmen who worked there shared the idea, when they came back, shared the ideas about the separation of church and state, the abolition of child labor, and various workers' rights. They could use the logistics of well-organized craftsmen's societies or speak with the established social democrats, socialists, and even anarchists who regularly would visit at least the bigger towns like Ljubljana, Krain, Maribor, and Trieste. And before the establishment of Austrian social democracy, most activists representing craftsmen and workers were usually labeled as socialists, communists, and anarchists, despite rarely they would identify with those labels themselves. And this is exactly what happened to the circle around these people, and how the story ended is described in the book of a Slovenian historian. You should look at because it explains a very important part of the movement of liberal ideas in Slovenia. After Austrian social democracy was established, most workers' activists joined the party, while the mainstream liberal political landscape was divided into the so-called new and old Slovenians, the former being closely connected to the Slovenian Catholic Church. Since the establishment of Ljubljana diocese in the 15th century, whose bishops had the privilege of local lords, which is very important, the Slovenian Catholic Church remained an important political force. Its influence and political power were particularly significant during World War II, when the head of diocese decided to side the occupying fascists, triggering the conflict between the resistance and those supporting the fascist and Nazi occupiers. Because of this, liberal ideas could only be represented at that time by the newly established Slovenian Communist Party, Christian socialists, and mainstream liberals who organized the resistance against the occupiers. After the war, the communists took over. Liberalism was doomed and again associated with anarchism, while so-called anarcho-liberalism became the catchword covering all deviations in the communist movement. The grandmaster of decision-making, who is or is not an anarcho-liberal, was Edvard Kardelj, the leading ideologist of the Yugoslav Communist Party. And according to his most referenced book, Smeri razvoja socialističnega samoupravljanja, upam, da je kdo to prebiral, so the future development of socialist self-management, anarcho-liberalism aimed at an ultra-left critique of Yugoslav constitution, as he puts it. Kardelj criticized two kinds of ultra-liberalism. On one hand, those working against the working class and are influenced by foreign ultra-left ideas. On the other, intellectuals and students living outside, as he said, outside the social reality. According to Cardell, both factions shared a nostalgia for the privileges of the social elite. Through Cardell's idea, through his lens, the ideas of socialist market economy in Slovenia, first introduced already in the late 60s, were considered too liberal. Even though the economists at that time supporting it spoke not, and they actually did not spoke of liberal democracy, but more or less of democratic socialism. So, and this was the catchword of the, of the period. Democratic socialism was
5
also
minutes. You have 5 minutes left.
Was also the core idea of the emerging civil society in the 80s, which influenced the developments in the 90s. So, and this is why the Slovenian post-socialist liberal democracy, first represented by Liberal Party in 1990, was really connected with the idea of welfare state. So more welfare state than liberalism. And this is one of the reasons why liberal democracy, Slovenian liberal democracy, established 4 years later in 1994 as a Liberal Democratic Party, followed the agenda of civil society movement supporting peace, environmental care, gay rights, freedom of speech, and free enterprise. It is also why liberal democracy became the leading political force between 1994 and 2004. After that, and you are too young to remember, but after that, the right-leaning Slovenian Democrats took the lead, with nationalism re-entering the political agenda, along with other conservative ideas ranging from homophobia to chauvinism and nationalism. The change was apparent and painfully so because it followed an ongoing discussion about relation between citizen liberal democracy and education. And here is a volume that was published after a series of symposia on this topic with the title Liberal Democracy, Citizens and Education. And the discussion took place in the late 90s, and the book was published in the beginning of the in new millennia. So there was a practice of a discussion of what liberal means and what liberal democracy mean and how important is for the country that changes. That's why the regression that came after was so painful. But when Slovenia joined EU in 2004, and there were still the majority of the views in that time political space was still based on classical liberal rights. This was the reason that at least for a year or two gave the liberals the opportunity to slow the illiberal erosion of political space for a few years. But after 2012, there was no way back. The economic crisis caused by the neoliberal merger with nationalistic protectionism led to the short-lived legacy of Slovenian liberal and social democracy losing ground, while the final blow to the liberal agenda came with the migrant wave in 2015 and the developments connected to the COVID 5 years later. In these 5 years, Slovenia witnessed a distinctive radicalization of the entire center-right policy, partly because of the fraternization between the Orban regime and the Slovenian Democratic Party. After that, more or less open leaning toward illiberal democracy became almost the routine. One maker of alarming endorsement of authoritarian practice was then as well the praise of US President Trump, early signs of refrigerating liberalism in US, and later right-wing sympathy for Trump transformed into eager glorification of his actions, resulting in open endorsement of the idea of a strong man guiding society in the need for radical transformation of cultures and morals. This is the greatest challenge of maintaining liberal dialogue, not only in Slovenia, but far beyond. The recent climate of fear first experienced during harsh and partly irrational sanctions during the COVID lockdown, arresting people for public reading of the Constitution or spraying tear gas over protesters, developed in a climate of uncertainty that bailed stability and authenticity. This was a period in which Donald Trump's playbook offering patterns of illiberal behavior was widely accepted in Slovenia as well. A good example of this, and this is where I finish, are the elections or election campaign held 10 days ago, involving the commission of the possible black cube services by the head of the Slovenian Democratic Party. I would show you just this
very quickly, because
the
we
slide
have to
before
leave
last, and I would encourage you to look at the Videm Institute and their analysis on democracy, which is appalling. My suggestion is we agreed among themselves to finish with this suggestion how we go from here. A few weeks ago, I was asked by a colleague of mine to instruct her 8th grader, which would be 14 years old pupil, about the division of the power in Slovenia. And then I came across an interesting book, Domovinska in državljanska vzgoja, kultura in etika, that I never knew before. And then this 8th grader told me that there are books also for the high school. So my proposal would be, we should go back to school. We should read these workbooks and the other books on democratic citizenship, liberal democracy and education, and start from scratch. Because I was really amazed how good they are. So either we learn more about liberal democracy, or we really again face the situation that we already faced. Police threatening the people who read the Constitution, or this. Thank you for listening. If anyone would be interested in the debate I was talking about that took place 25 years ago, and this is a book about it. So I have a few authors' copies, 6 or 5 of them. I will leave them on a table, and everyone, you can take it.
The first one who comes. So thank you, Oto Luthar. Thank you all the discussants, and also I would like to thank who are supporting us. First of all, Soros, Soros Society. How is it? I'm a little bit tired. Open Society for Western Balkans and the Generali who is supporting us. Thank you, the ambassador. Thank you, Vesna Humar, State Secretary, and of course, thank you to the Europe House who is hosting us. And also thank you, students and youngsters. You will be. I hope you will be part of our network. And the next liberal dialogue, the next step will be held in Belgrade on the 14th of April, and we will talk about leadership, rights, and media. So thank you again, and have a nice day.